Okay, this is lesson 1.1H on linear equations, what we've been doing, but now in real world context, otherwise known as word problems. So let's jump right in. We are going to be doing some of these together in this video, and then next class, I'm going to be asking you to do some on your own with the help of me if you need an army. So 1, examine the scenario about Chloe and her friends to complete the following. Write expressions for the cost of each item listed below if the cost of one cookie is X. So the context over here is just what the word problem is about. Chloe and her friends are going on a picnic. A sandwich is 6 times the cost of a cookie. A bag of chips is 1.5 times the cost of a cookie. And a soda is twice the cost of a cookie. Okay, so if the cost of a cookie is X, it gives us this. A sandwich is 6 times the cost of a cookie. So a sandwich would be 6X, or 6 times the cost of a cookie. That's where I'm getting it. If a bag of chips is 1.5 times the cost of a cookie, then I write 1.5 times the cost of a cookie, or you could write 3/2 times X. And then the last part here is a soda is twice the cost of a cookie. So 2X. Chloe and her friends buy 2 sandwiches, 3 bags of chips, 4 cookies, and 2 sodas. They spend a total amount of $12.25. Use this information and the expressions you wrote above to write an equation representing this situation. Okay, so we're going to use these expressions up here to now write an equation. So the way I like to start this is I like to just circle what I bought. So 2 times the cost of a sandwiches, and then I also have 3 times the cost of chips. I have 4 cookies. I'm going to say cost of cookies. And then I have 2 times the sodas. All of this, I'm going to write it over here since I don't have room anymore, is going to be equal to $12.25. So now I just go ahead and plug it in. So I'm going to write 2 times 6X, because 6X is the cost of a sandwich, plus 3 times the cost of a bag of chips right here, plus we have the cost of cookies, plus 4 times the cost of a cookie. That was our original one. And then 2 times the cost of sodas. So I should have written 2 times 2X, because the cost of a soda is 2X. And then again, all of this will be equal to $12.25. So when we solve our equation in this next step, we're going to combine like terms. So I'm going to just rewrite this down here. 12.25 equals 2 times 6X will be 12X. 3 times 1.5X, well, 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times half will be 1.5. So this will be 4.5X plus 4X plus actually another 4X. Now, all of these have X's in them, so I can combine all of them. So 12.25 equals 12 plus 4 and 4 is 8, so this is 20. So this is 24.5X. And then to get that X alone, I'm going to divide by 24.5. And this 24.5 divided by 24.5 will cancel. So X is going to be equal to, well, 12 goes into 24 twice, and 25 goes into 50 cents twice. So this is going to be half, but because it's money, we're going to write as 50 cents. 0.50 for, remember, this was X. X up here is the cost of a cookie. So the cookie cost 50 cents. And then I just have to go back through here. The cost of a sandwich is 6 times 0.5. 6 times 0.5, or 6 times half, that will get me $3 is the cost of a sandwich. The cost of a bag of chips is 1.5 times 0.5, 1.5 of half is just 75 cents, so 0.75. And then the cost of a soda is 2 times 0.5, which will just be $1. Okay, so that's our answer for number 1. So let's go back at what we did. The first thing we did was define our expressions. So we wrote expressions using what the information was in the word problem. We use these expressions to then write an equation. If we need to, we can write our equation in words first and then plug our expressions in. And then we just solved combining like terms. So it's number 2, Uncle Hank loves riddles. Uncle Hank tells his nephews, I have twice as many dimes as quarters. I have 12 more nickels than quarters. I have $4.60 total. Whoever can solve my riddle will get coins. Okay, if Q represents the number of quarters, Q represents the number of quarters. I'm going to circle that. That's really important information. And I'm even going to write it over here. Number of quarters equals Q. Write an expression that represents the number of dimes and the number of nickels. So I have to go back and use the information in the problem. So I have Q number of quarters, and I know that I have twice as many dimes as quarters. So that means I have to think I have more dimes than quarters. So the number of dimes will be equal to 2 times the number of quarters. So 2 times Q, which is our number of quarters. Now, I have 12 more nickels than quarters. Well, let's pretend I have 10 quarters. If I have 12 more, I have to add 12 to get that there. So 12 more nickels than quarters. So I have the number of quarters plus 12 will equal my number of nickels. Owen has a good start on writing an equation for this riddle. Help Owen fill in the missing pieces of the equation on the lines below. Okay, well, first of all, if I added the number of dimes, the number of nickels, and the number of quarters, I would not actually have the total value of money. I would just have the number of coins that I have. So Owen's trying to find the total value of money because that's what we know. We know that Uncle Hank has $4.60. But in order to get the total value of money, I have to multiply times the actual value. If I have 4 quarters, I multiply 4 times 0.25. So the number of quarters times the value of this money. Same thing with the number of dimes. If I have 2Q down here, I'm going to write that the value of a dime is 10 cents. And then if I have 0.05 is the value of a nickel, I'm going to multiply 0.05 times this whole expression. So I'm going to write it in parentheses. It's Q plus 12. Then it's going to ask us to solve in this next step. It says, how many of each type of coin does Uncle Hank have? Show all of your work. This would be a really great problem to clear the decimal on. In order to clear the decimal, I don't have to just multiply times 10. I have to multiply times 100 because I need to move the decimal place 2 times to get whole numbers here. So if I were to multiply both sides by 100, I'm going to rewrite my new equation down here. 100 times 0.25 Q is 25Q. When I distribute this 100, I can just distribute outside the parentheses. So remember, I'm moving it 2 places, so 25Q, and then plus 10 times 2Q. And then I'm going to distribute it right here. I don't need to distribute in the parentheses too, because this is multiplication. So 100 times 0.05 will be just 5 times Q plus 12, and then 400 equals 460. So now I have 25Q. This will be 20Q. 10 times 2Q will be 20Q. So 25Q plus 20Q plus 5Q plus 60. I'm going to distribute that 5 equals 460. Now, before I try and add or subtract anything, I'm going to combine like terms and simplify each side. This side's already simplified. There's only one thing over here. But this one, I can see 25Q plus 20Q will be 45Q plus 5Q This will be 50Q plus 60 equals 460. Now I can subtract 60 from each side, and I get 50Q equals 400. When I divide both sides by 50, I get Q equals 400 divided by 50. And I know that if I were to just cross out a 0 here, 40 divided by 5 is 8. So Q equals 8. It doesn't just ask us the number of quarters, though. It asks us the number of each. So the number of quarters I'm going to write is 8, but the number of dimes, well, this is 2 times 8. This will be 16. And the number of nickels was 8, or Q, plus 12. So this is 20 nickels. So when we're doing these money problems, we have to first make sure to define number of quarters, number of nickels, and number of dimes, if there's all three. And then we have to remember to use the value of the money if we're going to set it equal to the amount of money that we have. Okay, next page here. I'm actually going to skip this next page because I want you guys to try number 3 in class. So we're going to skip this page and we're going to skip number 4 as well. So we're now on page 38, number 5. Karen wants to find the length of her kitchen table to see if her new chairs will fit. She knows the perimeter of the table is 168 inches and that the length is 36 inches more than the width. Okay, I'm going to pause there just because this is a lot of information. And what I like in this problem is the perimeter is 168 inches. I know what perimeter is, so I'm just going to draw a picture. I know that perimeter is the width and the width and the length and the length. All of that together added up will be 168 inches. So perimeter equals 168. Now, the length is 36 inches more than the width. Okay, well, I'm just going to write this down. The length is 36 more than the width. That means that I just said the length is L and the width is W. Karen's solving process is shown below, but she made a mistake. Circle and explain the mistake made and find the correct length of Karen's kitchen table. Personally, I think it's a lot easier to try and write these out before looking at the mistake because sometimes it's kind of hard to find. But if you want to, you can just look for the mistake. So I'm going to write this out because we will need to try these problems on our own before we have these hints. If I have the perimeter and I have the width and the length, well, I know that the perimeter is equal to width plus length plus width plus length. And I know that 168 is the perimeter. And I know that my width is W. I'm just going to write 2W because I have 2 W's. And then I have 2 times L, so plus 2 times my length is 36 plus W. Okay, so right now, I'm going to just check if my equation looks different from Karen's equation. So she said width is W. Cool, we did 2. The length is W plus 36. We did 2. 168 is equal to 2W plus W plus 36. Okay, here is where she made her mistake. She has 2 widths, 1, 2, but she only has 1 length. She did not multiply the length times 2. So I'm going to write, she did not multiply the length times 2. So the correct solution is, well, I have my equation right here. I'm going to go ahead and just solve it. 168 equals 2W plus, when I distribute this to 36, 2 times 30 is 60, and 6 times 2 is 12, so this will be 72 plus 2W. I have 4W plus 72 simplified on this side equals 168. When I subtract 72, well, if I were to subtract 70, I know it would be 98. So I know this is 96 equals 2W. And then my final step here, I can just divide by 2. So W will equal 45 plus 3 is 48, and our units were in inches. So the width is 48, and then the length, remember we have to find the length too, is 48 plus 36. So I would say 50 plus 34, this will be 84 inches. And if we really wanted to check our solution, we could say, okay, well, 2 times 48 is 96. And 2 times 84, well, that's 168. Wait, 2 times 84. Well, I'm realizing that I made a mistake because 84 would equal 168. So if I look back here, I realized that I wrote, instead of 4W, I wrote 2W. So 96, instead of dividing by 2, we would divide it by 4. Our width would actually be 24 inches. So then if we added 36 to 24, I would get 30 plus 30 is 60 inches. So now, if I were to check, I have 24 times 2 is 48, and then 60 times 2 is 120. So 120 plus 48 will equal my perimeter of 168. Okay. All right, next part says, write an expression for each unknown quantity and an equation for the word problem. So our expressions are these, and then our equation is this. Okay, solve your equation and write your solution in a complete sentence. Show all of your work. I'm going to skip number 7 because I want you guys to try that one in class when we come back in class. Number 6. So number 7 says, in a triangle, angle A is 3 times larger than angle B. Angle C is 35 degrees larger than angle B, and the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. Okay, well, the sum, that means I'm going to add all 3 of these angles together and equal 180 degrees. It's asking to find the measure of each angle. Okay, well, I have the measure of angle A. I have the measure of angle B, and I have the measure of angle C. Okay, so if angle A is 3 times larger than angle B, I'm going to write 3 times larger than angle B. And that means that angle B is just B. The measure of angle C is 35 degrees larger than angle A. Okay, well, angle A I know is 3 times B, this is 35 degrees larger than angle B. So angle B is B, and 35 degrees larger would just be plus 35. The sum of the angles is 180 degrees. Okay, so now I'm just adding all 3 up. So now I have the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C, and that will get me 180 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify and combine like terms. So I have 3B, or 5B plus 35 equals 180. Now I can subtract 35 from both sides. Well, 180 minus 30 would be 150, so this would be 145. And then when I divide each side by 3, I'm going to get B is equal to, this will end up being another mistake, guys. I wrote 3 instead of 5. I don't know what's wrong with me today. So 5B, and then I'm going to divide by 5. So 145 divided by 5, the measure of angle B will end up being 29 degrees. And then the measure of angle A will be 3 times that, and that will be 87 degrees. And then the measure of angle C will be 29 plus 35, or 64 degrees. So now I have to write my answer in a complete sentence like the directions say. So measure of angle B is 29 degrees, measure of angle A is 87 degrees, and the measure of angle C is 64 degrees. Okay, so that would be my final answer there. Okay, so right now I just skipped to question 10 because we're going to do 8 and 9 in class. But I want you guys to pause the video and just try number 10 on your own. We are talking about an average score here. So think about when you're averaging scores out of your test, how do you get an average? So go ahead and pause the video and try number 10 on your own. Okay, so Sam scored 90% on his first math exam, 76% on his second math exam, 92% on his third math exam. What must he score on his fourth math exam to have an average of 88% in the class? Okay, so we're assuming that this class is just test. Score on exam 1 was 90%. Score on exam 2 was 76%. Score on exam 3 was 92%. And then score on exam 4, we're just going to define that as X. It doesn't have to be X. You can use any variable you want. But when I take an average of two things, I add those two things together and divide by 2. So if I take an average of 4 things, I add those 4 things together and divide by 4. And we want that to be equal to 88%. So now I'm going to write 90 plus 76 plus 96 plus X. And remember, I'm going to divide those by 4 because there's 4 of them. I want that to be equal to 88. So now I would simplify this side before I do anything. So 88 is already simplified over here. But when I simplify, I can do 90 plus 76 plus 96. And again, Miss Hunter made a mistake. I wrote 96 instead of 92. This would be 92 on the third exam. So if I do 90 plus 76 plus 92, this will get 258 plus X over 4. You guys can use a calculator for these if you need to. Now, I can't do anything else because I have an X and a term without an X. So now I have to get rid of this 4. In order to get rid of this 4, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. So that will cancel. On this side, I just have 258 plus X equals, well, 4 times 80 is going to be 320, and 4 times 8 is going to be 32. So I'm going to add 320 and 32 to get 352. Then I subtract 258, and I will get that X is going to be equal to 94. So now my final sentence would be Sam must score an average, or must score a 94 on his fourth math test to have an average of 88% in the class. Okay, you got to the end of the video. Now, please comment on my YouTube so that I know that you watched the video.